What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are looking forward to the final game of the 2020 NFL season. That's right. Most of the league, certainly the Dallas Cowboys, has their focus on the NFL draft. And the Cowboys have had their focus on the draft for some time now, as their season did not end the way that we all wanted it to, as they did not make the playoffs. They were an utter disaster. It was embarrassing. It was frustrating. It was thrilling. It was dramatic. It was the ultimate Dallas Cowboys season in those particular senses. But why was the Cowboys season this way? We have spent a lot of time so far this offseason kind of diagnosing in a post-mortem way what the year was that we saw. And obviously there were a lot of injuries that affected the way this team was able to play, a lot of the things they were able to do. And they did have some nice moments, and they came on and really gave us a lot of fun kind of around Christmas time. But ultimately, this team and this season was defined by one of the worst defenses to ever walk the planet. And so the Cowboys have the 10th overall pick. They also have a lot of things on their to-do list this offseason. Pay Dak Prescott. Pay Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. But that is really what they have to do in terms of their offense. Last week we talked about names that you need to know when it comes to the NFL draft that are on the offensive side of the ball for the Dallas Cowboys. Today, big shocker here, we are going to talk about names that you need to know when it comes to the defensive side of the ball for the Dallas Cowboys in the upcoming 2021 NFL draft. Now, overall, I do think the really only pressing thing for the Cowboys offensively this whole offseason is just to sign Dak Prescott. You could certainly throw out getting depth at offensive tackle. In fact, I think that is maybe the team's sort of third priority overall. Although, to be fair, I would put, fix the entire defense as priority number one to kind of put it under one nice and neat umbrella. But when you look at the needs for the Dallas Cowboys from a draft perspective, we do have offensive tackle up here because it is a position the Cowboys are going to need to address at some point or another, whether it be in free agency or the NFL draft. We don't have cornerback on this list. It should be. Whatever. Sometimes things happen. Anyway, I get forgetful. That's what happens. But that's what we're here for, to talk about it, to flesh it out, to add context. And as you see, these are really all defensive positions for the Dallas Cowboys. If they spend every resource, again, outside of paying Dak Prescott, if they spend every resource this offseason on the defensive side of the ball, they might not even be doing enough to fix this defense. And obviously, they've done a lot of things so far in terms of adjusting coaching staffs and bringing Dan Quinn in to be the new defensive coordinator. But the Cowboys ultimately, unless they're going to, use these resources and give Dan Quinn legitimate players, they're going to do the same thing. And what's the quote? The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again with the same results, whatever. So yeah, we might have to say that quote for the 3,000th, millionth, whatever, made up some words time in a row. But anyway, so on the subject of the draft, anytime there is a big draft, or a mock draft rather, we do cover it for you at bloggingtheboys.com just to get you caught up to speed in case you missed it. Before the season ended, Mel Kiper and Todd McShay of the Worldwide Leader did have Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons heading to the Dallas Cowboys. Cool. Right after the season ended, Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech was mocked to the Cowboys by SB Nation. Shout out to SB Nation, by the way. Hey, shout-outs are cool. Shout out to you. Shout out to everybody. But anyway, Caleb Farley is certainly an interesting option to consider for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Patrick Surtain of Alabama was mocked to the Dallas Cowboys on January 7th by Todd McShay. Again, sticking on the defensive side of the ball, Todd McShay was about a month after he, kind of co-authored the Micah Parsons mock for the Cowboys. Anyway, January 22nd, NFL Media's Daniel Jeremiah mocked Penei Sewell to the Dallas Cowboys, staying on the offensive side of the ball. Again, if the Cowboys went offensive tackle, it'd be hard to be upset about if they landed Sewell or if they landed Rashawn Slater, who Mel Kiper mocked to the Cowboys just last week. It would not be fun. It would not be pizzazz. Again, we talked about these players when we did our offensive players to know, and we are going to do film reviews on all these players, including the defensive players that we're going to get to here on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, so make sure you do subscribe so you see all of our wonderful content, and we get to see your beautiful, wonderful faces all of the time. But okay, let's get to it. 5 names that you need to know when it comes to the defensive side of the ball for the Cowboys when it comes to the 2021 NFL Draft. Number 1, Patrick Surtain from the University of Alabama. Patrick Surtain is somebody that a lot of Cowboys fans have already familiarized themselves with. This happens a lot when players play for big powerhouses. Obviously Alabama, obviously winning a national championship, playing big-time college football games, on and on and on and on. Look, when you look at the cornerback depth for the Dallas Cowboys, as it currently stands, there isn't a lot. And it would be really cool, honestly, in case you forgot that he also went there, to see Patrick Surtain reunited with Trayvon Diggs. That would be awesome. In fact, there was a long stretch where the Cowboys went without even drafting players from Alabama. I think Bo Scarborough was the first player they drafted from there in like 14 years. And now the Cowboys are apparently just all about it, especially if they do draft Patrick Surtain. There is another Alabama player that we will discuss in a little bit. That's what they call a tease. Anyway, so I of all the possibilities, of all the hypotheticals, of all the things you can kind of jumble up and spit out right now in late January, early February, well, it is early February. So, in early February, this is probably my favorite because when you look at the situation when it comes to the Cowboys secondary as a whole, but cornerback specifically, it's Trayvon Diggs, cool, awesome. It's Reggie Robinson, who maybe is going to be moved back to corner under Dan Quinn. We'll see. Obviously, Mike Nolan had him playing safety, which, why are we going to trust any of the decisions that were made then? And they've got Anthony Brown. And so I've said this before on some of our podcasts. Make sure you do subscribe to the Blog on the Boys podcast network. We are available on all major podcast platforms. You can also hear me, if you like me, on the SB Nation NFL show several days a week. Talking about the whole NFL, the League of National Football. Anyway, so the thing that I've been saying is I do think that because of the pandemic, I think that we could see a higher frequency, a higher volume of one-year deals for players in the NFL. Because obviously last year, the pandemic had just started, in terms of a national level of awareness when free agency started. And so there was a lot of level of unknown. Remember, we didn't even know if the Cowboys were going to have a season, the NFL was going to have a season, etc. And so the whole year was spent in I don't want to say experimental, but in a very kind of learning as everybody went along way. And so obviously we have no idea what the 2021 season is going to look like in a lot of capacities, but we know that the salary cap isn't going to be, experiencing the level of growth that it had been accustomed to. And so we know that a lot of things are more predictable now in terms of protocols and things like that than they were a year ago. And so I think that it's a possibility that a lot of players who were already on one-year deals, or rather who played on one-year deals or the last year of their deals last year, I think they might say, you know what, let's run it back one more year. That way the salary cap can climb in 2022. Things are a little bit more predictable. Things are a little bit more understood, etc. So we're not, flying in as much of uncharted waters as we were in 2020. I'm going to stay for a one-year deal to put myself back on the map for next year. I think we could see that in a really high frequency across the NFL in general. And it should be said that the Cowboys have three prominent members of their secondary hitting free agency this year, in Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, and Xavier Woods. Obviously, all three drafted in 2017. And so I think the Cowboys probably split the difference at corner with Cheeto and Jordan Lewis. I think they retain one of them. So if you're telling me let's call it Cheeto, because I think Xavier Woods probably walks, I think you're probably looking at a cornerback group, or in this hypothetical, you would definitely be looking at a cornerback group of Chidobe Awuzie, Anthony Brown, in terms of your legitimate veterans, Trayvon Diggs, your rising superstar, and if you drafted Patrick Surtain with Reggie Robinson, maybe being a project along the way, that's pretty good. I mean, like I have felt worse about a lot of Cowboys cornerback, situations, and so that would not be bad. Let's take a look at what Patrick Surtain has been able to do so far throughout his college career. Playing in the SEC, it just means more. This is the physicality that we want to see from Cowboys cornerbacks. We got kind of accustomed to it with Trayvon Diggs, missed it when it was gone. We want to see this. We haven't seen this, to be frank. I mean, the 2017 draft class for the Cowboys was, to call it a failure is a bit of an exaggeration, but, it would be really nice to see this level of consistency from a just dominating standpoint from a Cowboys cornerback. Take that all over the house. Thank you, Patrick. Let's move on. Now, this pick is interesting, or this hypothetical is interesting. We're dealing in a lot of hypotheticals. That's such a fun word to say. Hypothetical. Hypothetical. 6 syllables. Anyway, Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons. This pick, there was a lot of talk last year before the Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb. Thank you. There was a lot of talk that maybe the Cowboys would be interested, or rather had interest, in Oklahoma linebacker Kenneth Murray. And there were a lot of people that were like, don't do that. And ultimately, I think that the interest level in Kenneth Murray was the true indictment. And so it shouldn't have been shocking to any of us, not that it was, that Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith collectively had not a great year. And obviously injuries were a factor for Leighton, but it was just 2 years ago that we were coming off the 2018 season thinking that this position had its core set for the next half decade. And here we are, 2 years later, and not great. And, this is frustrating, I think, because Leighton Vander Esch had injury concerns, obviously entering the draft himself in 2018. The Cowboys pressed on, and Obviously, Jalen Smith had a great year that year, and obviously got his contract extension. And obviously, I've said the word obviously several times. You ever say a word like 5 times in a row, and it just feels weird? Obviously. Obviously, the state of the linebacking position for the Cowboys is not great. And it will be interesting to see if there's a line in the sand drawn by the Cowboys with regards to either players this offseason. Do the Cowboys approach Jalen Smith about a pay cut like has been talked about in some circles? Do the Cowboys not pick up Leighton Vander Esch's fifth-year option? Either one of those would obviously send a loud message to the team as a whole, I think, but to the linebacking position specifically. And if Sean Lee does retire, if he moves on, if he becomes a coach, whatever, if he becomes a high school teacher, I mean, a million different possibilities. The world is Sean Lee's oyster. Your depth is not great. And so maybe in that world, in that hypothetical, Micah Parsons is the most responsible pick. I don't think this is a foolproof strategy by any means, so don't misinterpret this. But I do, in some convoluted way, think that the best plan might be to just cross your fingers and hope that Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith can be okay at linebacker and go with a Patrick Surtain or even, Kyle Pitts or whatever. But, I don't love this pick for that reason. But obviously, there's a lot to love about Micah Parsons when you look at his film from his college career. I mean, I was going to say when was the last time we've seen a Cowboys linebacker play like this? But again, the answer is 2018. And Micah Parsons had the tweet. He said, "I want to stay in the blue and white, whatever, at AT&T Stadium. Awesome." I would not be upset about this, but it would feel weird. It wouldn't be like socks for Christmas. It would be like, I don't know. It would be like coffee without cream. Like it's weird, or maybe not even without cream, but like with a different cream. Like you're used to a certain flavor, and it's like you're used to peppermint mocha, and all of a sudden it's like vanilla. It just is different. But anyway, let's move on. Again, I'm in a weird mood today, so I hope you're in a weird mood. I hope you're feeling great. Let's talk about Christian Barmore, obviously from Alabama. Obviously, this is impossible because he plays defensive tackle, and the Cowboys refuse to draft awesome defensive tackles, and they refuse to spend legitimate resources. I mean, if we're looking at the history of these positions, the Cowboys, yes, did spend a first-round pick on a linebacker in 2018. They took, whatever you want to call Byron Jones, a first-round cornerback safety in 2015. They took a cornerback in the second and third round in 2017. I mean, so the Cowboys, and they took a cornerback in the second round last year in Trayvon Diggs. And so this is the one position that we're going to be talking about today. Well, that's, not 100% true. But this does feel impossible because the Cowboys just refuse. They utterly refuse. And that's because the Cowboys have seen firsthand what the abilities of an elite defensive tackle can do for an NFL team. They've lost a playoff game to the Los Angeles Rams and Aaron Donald. They play in the same division as the Philadelphia Eagles and Fletcher Cox. And so I don't know why the Cowboys refuse, but Christian is a grade A baller and really had a fantastic run in the playoff and obviously in the national championship game and plays in the SEC. Again, it just means more. I'm I'm all for turnovers and sacks and things like that, but the thing about it is just cause a mess. You know what I mean? Just get in the way, just wreak havoc, just cause dysfunction. And that's what we haven't seen on a consistent basis from a Cowboys defensive tackle. They have been trying to make different things happen, and it has not happened. I mean, again, I don't know how you don't see this and fall in love, but that is kind of the Cowboys' way. And think about the defensive tackles that have existed for the Cowboys in the last decade. It's been we've talked about this several times. Jason Hatcher, Stephen Bowen, Henry Melton, Stephen Paya, Antoine Woods, and some of these players have had legitimate moments, right? Like Antoine Woods has had some legitimate moments, but they're still, and I know the Cowboys drafted Tristan Hill in the second round 2 years ago, but that really fell flat on its face early on before it started to be revived before Tristan was hurt last year. And yes, the Cowboys did go out and spend money on Joe McCoy to a legitimately small degree, but they also spent money on Dontari Poe, and that's what it is. Every year it's find the Dontari Poe, and the Cowboys, I just refuse to let myself dream and refuse to let myself get my hopes up because the Cowboys have let me down a number of times, and that's just, they just Draft a defensive tackle, please. Anyway, let's move on. Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. This was kind of the first name that really started to get mocked to the Cowboys a lot. Again, it was kind of before the season officially ended, and that's the way draft season works. Is 1 month, a handful of names, a batch of names are really hot, and then the next month things change a little bit, and the next month they either move back, they move around, whatever. That's going to be life for the next couple of months. But Caleb Farley, I think, another option, and we've already discussed the merits of the Cowboys going cornerback. Look, I mean, let's just jump right in. Let's look at these highlights because the Cowboys did not pay Byron Jones a year ago, as we all know. They should have paid Byron Jones. And look, this is easy. I mean, good job, Caleb. Well done. But look, you play in a passing league, and I know you got to go get that defensive tackle. That's why you need more picks, trade out of 10 overall. But we want to see this fight. We want, shout out to Jason Garrett, fight. But we want to see this type of physical interaction from our cornerbacks. And so that's why if this is the pick, I would honestly see it's so hard to know, obviously, but if this is the pick, I feel totally fine. Again, the idea that I'm most in love with right now, and this is how I feel in early February, is Patrick Surtain. But things do change. And ultimately, if the Cowboys go down this road, I think we'll all have a difficult time being upset with it. Now, there was talk about like Christian Fulton last year, AJ Terrell, and had the Cowboys done that, it's really easy to look back with hindsight and say, and thankfully they didn't draft those dudes instead of CeeDee Lamb, whatever. And I get that, but this would be okay. This would be okay. And so, that's a good way to end this now. We have one more for you. Hamsa Ngata. Say that 5 times fast. So I talked about, positions the Cowboys refused to invest in. And once upon a time, they did want to draft a Florida State product and play him at safety. He now plays for the Los Angeles Rams and is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Thankfully, he is not playing safety to a frustrating degree with the Dallas Cowboys. But Hamsa Ngata, again, still working on that, so apologies. But that's you get the full authentic experience here at Blogging the Boys. So anyway, this is just a name that we want, that we felt it was important to know. Not the same level, obviously. We've talked about some of the top names in the draft, but the Cowboys are obviously looking for a safety, and I've said this many times as well. And it's kind of topical. I'm a fighting Texas Aggie. Shout out to Jimbo Fisher, who obviously used to coach at Florida State. I hope the Cowboys don't just look at what Donovan Wilson did last year and say, you know what, we're good. We're good at safety. We don't have to do something because Donovan Wilson is enough. You know why? I hope the Cowboys do not do that, because they did that with Xavier Woods. And Xavier Woods looked really promising in 2017. And a lot of people had some thoughts and had some hope, in 2018 and 2019. And, come 2000. And look, not every player is the same. Not every player is going to follow the same, results and, same path, etc. But it's time to invest. It's time to change the way you do things. It's time to change your practices and your beliefs and your philosophy, so that maybe involves spending a legitimate pick or legitimate money at defensive tackle. Maybe it involves spending a legitimate pick or legitimate money on the safety that you haven't had in forever. And so Hamsa Ngata, nailed it, is an option for the Cowboys. Let's take a look at some of his highlights from Florida State. Trevor Lawrence, future Jacksonville Jaguar. Throw it. Thank you. That's, again, play him on wide receiver. Look at this. Oh, yeah. Only 1 foot necessary, but get the second. Nicely done. Look, again, this is an option. Not going to knock your socks off when it comes to safeties and potential safeties in the NFL, but not a name to know. That's the purpose of this conversation here today. A name to know, because the Cowboys need to know these names. They need to know all these safeties. They need to know all these defensive tackles. They need to know all these cornerbacks. They need to know all these linebackers, because the Cowboys' defense is, not good. Not good at all. And so we want to change that. We want to change that the defense is not good. We want a defense that is capable of doing a lot of things, whether by luck or skill. Just make sure that those things happen. So these are names that we want you to start familiarizing yourself with. We know it's still very early. It's still early February. The draft's still months away, but we are going to uncover these players. We're going to do some film reviews on all these players. The wonderful Matt Minich here at the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel is going to get to work on that, because we know that you want to know what these guys do well. That's what we're here. This is your first course. I hope, welcome. You look sharp. You got dressed, ready for the occasion. So here's our first course. Settle in. Here's the menu. Get yourself what you want. Order it. If you want some side dishes, let us know. If you want us to do any film reviews on any particular players, if you want us to discuss any certain ideas, if you just have a thought that you want to get off your chest, leave it in the comments below. Subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We work for you. We are people of the people. So whatever you want to see or heard, or hear, heard, whatever words, whatever you want to see or hear, having heard, whatever you want to see or hear being discussed, third time's the charm, let us know, because that's what we want to do. The coolest thing about the internet, in some ways, the coolest thing about, where we are in technologies, that we can enjoy the Dallas Cowboys together. And we want to do that. And so we want to take your feedback. So again, let us know in the comments whatever you want us to discuss, players you want us to do profiles on, things you want us to uncover, things you want us to figure out. We will do those for you. Again, subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If you have a lengthier thing you want to, kind of put out there, it doesn't fit in the comments, whatever, you can hit me up. I'm RJ Ochoa on Twitter or Instagram. You can also email me, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. And you can do me a favor. You can have the absolute best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.